You still here? Okay. Soon, baby, soon. Your parts are coming. They are on their way. Finally, they are moving. So soon we're gonna have the rest of the parts and we're gonna take care of you. Hi guys, welcome to the 1976 TR6 series on the Rusty Beauties garage. Unfortunately, we still don't have parts, but at least now I can track them and they're moving. They've been sitting for 40 days in one distribution center in US. Now finally they started moving again. So this is good. These are the parts for the TBI system that we're gonna be installing on this car. The head, on the other hand, is still in the machine shop. They keep telling me by the end of this week, by the end of the next week. I don't know what's going on. I mean, this machine shop never let me down before, and I'm sure they have a reason. Probably around the holidays they were closed for a long time. At some point I think the owner got sick for a few days, so it is what it is. But we're still not out of things to do on this car. We have right here on the table the transmission. So this transmission we installed on this car about 2 years ago. So when Tom bought the car, it came with a 4-speed transmission, and he went and he bought this one from the States somewhere. And with David, and Tom actually helped as well, the three of us, we installed this in the car. So it is J-type overdrive and it has absolutely no issues. But the only thing that I saw was actually that it had a little bit of a wet area here underneath. So I want to check it quickly and see if it has a leak, because the whole bottom of the car was very, very oily, if you remember. But I think that was from the previous transmission. I don't remember if that transmission was leaking or what the situation was, but I want to double check here the cover underneath and see if it is leaking from there, and that's all. Because when we switched transmissions, we replaced the shaft here, we replaced the bushings here on the shaft, a heavy duty pin, and everything has been taken care of. I just want to make sure that the oil all over the bottom of the car is not from the transmission. For this reason, I want to lift it like that, but it's gonna start leaking from the vent hole here, I'm pretty sure. Well, I'm gonna watch it. Or if we keep it on an angle like that, it's gonna be fine. Yeah, there's oil here. Is it leaking yet? No? How come? It's supposed to be. Oh, yeah, there you go. It's supposed to be leaking from there. So I think we have two sources of leaks here. It looks like it's leaking from this gasket here, which is a problem because we can't really do anything about it without taking the overdrive off the transmission, and we don't want to do that. And another leak from here around the brake plate of the overdrive. So it is what it is. It's gonna continue leaking a little bit at a time. I thought maybe around this cover, but I don't think that's the case. So unfortunately we can't do much about that. We're just gonna make sure that there's enough oil in the transmission. Okay, at least we made sure that the vent hole is working properly, which is good. On the early transmission there was no vent hole here, and when the oil expanded and contracted due to the temperature changes, it was more prone to leaks from the front seal, from the rear seal, from everywhere. So that's why it's important to have a vent here. Anyway, I wanted to show you something else here. So looks like there's a little leak from here as well, which we can deal with quickly. I mean, we can change this seal. As long as I have it, I'm gonna go check first, and if I have the seal, we're gonna change at least this. All right, so it turns out that we have the seal. It is different than the rear seal of the non-overdrive transmission, which I believe is the same as an A-type. So non-overdrive and A-type, I believe, are one seal, but J-type has a different seal. Part number for J-type is 121, 125 in most motors. So in this case, let's change it quickly. And eliminate at least one oil leak. So here we're gonna use the drywall screw trick, which is basically we're gonna run a screw in the seal and we're gonna use one of these hammers. I don't know what it's called, claw hammer. And we're gonna pull the seal out. I used to run the screw all the way until it hits the edge of the bearing here or something, and then continue, and the threads on the screw were pushing the seal out. Well, one of you guys, again I don't remember the name, I'm sorry, but told me this new trick which is so much better. And then I figured out the last time that if we flip this around, we can use it as a driver for the new seal. Okay, maybe we need a little bit more, right? So can we use the old seal for that? Okay, that's good. And now, before we put the flange back, we're gonna put it on the lathe and we're gonna clean it up and polish this surface so we don't damage the new seal right away. Now we're gonna lubricate it a little bit again and we can put it back on and torque it to 120 foot-pounds. Because there's a spacer inside, won't allow us to put a preload on anything, and the torque spec is 120 foot-pounds here. So I'm gonna put it on and I'll tell you what we're gonna do next. Well, what we're gonna do next is we're gonna take this engine, even though it is still decapitated, we're gonna mask somehow the top. We're gonna take it off the engine stand, we're gonna assemble the rear end of the engine. I mean, we're gonna put the flywheel on. We have to put a plug here, we shouldn't forget that, but we can put the rear engine plate on the flywheel, the clutch, and yes, you guessed it, the transmission. We can put them back together and we can drop the car down and we can install them in the car. And when the head comes, we can install it as the engine and the transmission are in the car already. But this is gonna open a whole entire world of projects that we can do on the car. So sounds like a plan? Okay. Alright, so the engine is off the stand and I used these, the head studs locations actually with some bolts. Yes, they are pretty deep inside and this here is not touching, so we are not damaging the surface and we are ready to start assembly here. I have a stool underneath to support it and now we can start working on the back here. And before we forget, first of all, let's install this plug here. I don't have such a big socket. Normally I use sockets for this, but I don't have such a big socket, so I made myself a drift that fits perfectly inside here. And now let's drive it in. We have a shoulder here at the end, so we can go all the way to the shoulder. So we're gonna go until it becomes solid. Want to make sure it starts not crooked. Looks like it's going more at the bottom than at the top. Okay. That's it. When I'm editing videos and I realize that every time I say that's it, then I go and hit 2-3 more times for good measure. Okay, now I can sleep well because I was worried that I might forget this eventually. So now we can put the rear engine plate here, bolt it on, install the flywheel, and then the clutch. We're gonna be using the old clutch, which is not really old. It's a pretty new clutch that we installed when we changed the transmission to the overdrive one, so it's good. The pressure plate is new as well, so that's okay. The flywheel, before we install it, we have to make sure that we have the bushing here, so it is in place because it goes from this side, and if you forget it, you have to take out the flywheel after that. So I'm telling you all that because I'm gonna put you on time-lapse mode again. You don't need to see me turning wrenches, right? At least not in real time. Okay, quick interruption of the time-lapse just to show you what I have to deal with now, because I have to torque the flywheel bolts to 75 foot-pounds, but I'm alone. There's absolutely no one at home, and somebody needs to needs to hold my breaker bar on the other side. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. Hold it with my foot. I don't know if you see, but okay. No. How am I supposed to do that? We tricked it. Okay. So the one that I torqued with my foot, turns out it was actually torqued. It worked. Okay, back to time-lapse. Right, so the clutch is installed and torqued. The bolts are torqued to 20 foot-pounds. That's the torque. It's centered with the special tool. So we're ready to install the transmission. The front end, we're not going to assemble anything there because we're not going to install the pulley yet. We're going to install everything when we are in the engine bay. I think it's going to be easier. It's going to help us with navigating the whole assembly through the engine bay. Before we install the transmission though, something very important, which I learned from Chef Tash. There's 2 dowels here, and many times they're missed, but these are very important for centering the transmission towards the clutch and the flywheel and all that. If you don't put the dowels, there's a little bit of backlash on the bolts, on the stems of the bolts, and your input shaft of the transmission might not be centered perfectly, and your clutch might be sticky. There are many other reasons why the clutch could be sticky, but that's one of them. So dowel here in this location, and a dowel here in this location. There's a little shoulder at the end of the rear engine plate, so they won't go through. They stop there. So now we can put the transmission. Okay, so the two components are together and ready to be installed in the car. But the car is too high up and it's facing the wrong way too. So tomorrow we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna do that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if we get rid of the Mazda somehow, if we are able to swing it around, then we can just lower the TR6 on the ground, back it up as far as we can go, and then with the engine crane we can go on that side and just put the engine in, so we can lift the car back up on the hoist, because we want to do that. The problem is, once we put the engine in, even though it is freshly rebuilt, we won't trust it anymore for leaks because it's a Triumph, you know. So once it's in, then won't be able to put the Mazda underneath. Anyway, we will see. So I think that's where we're gonna end it for today. It's 6 o'clock, so it's time to go get cleaned and have dinner. So I'll see you tomorrow. Alright, it's the next day and we rearranged the garage a little bit. The Mazda is now pulled away, so we can drop the TR6 down and roll it as far back as possible. That's gonna give us hopefully enough room there in the front, so we can maneuver with the crane and put the engine from that end. However, before we drop it down, I'd like to deal with something underneath before we forget, and that's the hoses. So I got not this hose. So I got clamps and a hose, injection hose from Napa, and I wanted to show you. People were asking what kind of a hose am I gonna use for the injection system, for the fuel supply. Here it is. Let me clean it and I'll bring you back. Okay, here's what it says. Gates 4219BF barricade fuel injection hose 5/16 7.9 millimeters, 225 psi or 15.6 bar, I believe. Green shield, multi-fuel, biofuel compatible, EPA compliant, RGT spline BF1. I have no idea what this means. Less than 15 gram per square meter per day. I have no idea what that means, but yes, it's ethanol proof and it is the right hose to be used for injection systems. Of course, we're not gonna go with just stupid one. And I got these injection system clamps. So for high pressure, that's what we want to use. We don't want to use those simple ones that you can over tighten them and they just go bad. So I want to put some hose in place before we drop it down. I'm not going to hold you for that. Also, I put the wheels now because we're going to have to roll it back, but I didn't put the hub covers because here, you remember, we still have to change this nut. This was a temporary nut on the hub because the permanent ones we're gonna have to torque to, I believe, 230 pounds. I don't remember, we're gonna have to look it up again. But yeah, so now when we put it on the ground, we're gonna put the e-brake on and we're gonna remove this nut. You see, I took it out with my finger. We're gonna remove this nut, we're gonna put the locking nut and we're gonna torque them, and only then we're gonna put the hub covers on. The front wheels are gonna come off anyways because, well, all the wheels will need to come off because the brakes need to be bled. I never bled the brakes after changed the hoses and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm gonna do some work on my own and I'll bring you back. All right, these two hoses are replaced. These are the two supply lines. The third one, I just left the old hose and the old clamps there. This is just for vapors, right? No pressure, no nothing there. And here in the back, we're gonna have to wait until we have the fuel pump and the filter and everything, and we're gonna run the rest of the lines. But here it's easy. So, okay, it's time to drop the car down, replace these nuts, torque them, and then we're gonna start dealing with the engine. Okay, so let's deal with this now. We're gonna remove the temporary nut. And the washer stays, so this washer that came with the kit stays there. On the threads there, we're gonna put thread lock. That's what the instructions call for. But on the nut, you see how the nut is crimped in 3 areas. So the instructions say to apply a very small amount of anti-seize only in these 3 areas to prevent the crimp from gulling the threads, apparently. And if you have to remove those, at some point you have to replace the nuts. That's why they sent 4 nuts. Actually, it comes with anti-seize already. I just realized that's the silver thing here is anti-seize. So they already had it there. And the torque here is 230 foot-pounds, which is crazy. Apparently this is 32 millimeters socket, which I happen to have. I bought it specifically for hubs, and my torque wrench goes up to 250, so I was afraid that I wasn't gonna have a big enough torque wrench. I hope the e-brake holds, because we're gonna have troubles otherwise. Wow, I don't think I ever put my torque wrench so high. Okay, a little bit more. Okay. Wow. Oh, it made the click. That's it. Let's try again. Yeah. Okay. Well, wasn't that bad. Perfect. All right, so I dealt with the other nut as well. And in this case, let's move the car as close as possible to the Miata without hitting it, right? The garage is on a slope here, so it might suddenly go. So I'm ready to... I think actually I don't need more than that. Or do I? Well, why not? I want to be able to put a jack on the rear end because I think I'm gonna have to put it on jack stands in the back. Yeah, so that's more than enough. All right. All right, it is almost in, but I decided to stop here for a second to show you how it goes in. Nice and smooth, nothing is touching anywhere. Well, now it's gonna touch over there, but you see I can push it that way. And here, because the rear mount is not in, actually I have to remove the seats now, which I will do. And because the rear mount is not in, it's gonna be easy to lift the rear end up and drop the front end down. One thing though I'm forgetting, and it's a good thing I remembered now, I need to put the drive shaft in. It's not inside because we took it out because the diff was out and everything, so we took the drive shaft out. I'd better put it now in because it's much easier. I don't think it's impossible to put it later, but it's gonna be much harder. So, all right, the seats are out, the drive shaft is in, and now we can continue dropping the engine down. I'm gonna start changing the angle here. Okay, so now it is more or less where it needs to be. It's still hanging on the engine crane and the rear end is on the jack, but it is exactly where it should be. So now I can put the engine mounts here, then we're gonna get rid of the crane, and then we're gonna raise the rear end of the transmission even higher so we can put the mount on the frame, and then we can drop the rear end on the frame and mount it, and we're gonna be done. All right, so finally the engine is in place. All the front mounts are installed. The rear one here, oh my God. I've forgotten how hard it is to put the bolts on that cross plate on the frame. It is ridiculously hard, especially when you're alone and you don't have anybody to help you. But anyway, it is assembled, the drive shaft is connected, so that's it. I think from here now we have so many more things that we can do. I don't even want to start counting them. Oh my God, now I think I've forgotten something though. I'm not really sure if I can put the pulley on here. Oh, forgot about that part. Anyway, you know what? Let me try and do that. I was gonna end the video here, but I don't want to leave you on a cliffhanger. So let's try and do that together. So this is a new pulley because the old one had the damper. The rubber was too perished. So I'm already realizing that this is not gonna work. Let's see. Oh, just a little more. Okay. But still, yeah, it's not gonna work. Ay. Well, that's gonna take longer than anticipated, so I'm hoping to be able to undo the bolts, the 4 bolts on the engine mounts, and lift the engine high enough just to be able to put the pulley on. But if that's not possible, the other possibility is to loosen these 4 nuts on the U-bolts here and just move the steering rack. It is disconnected anyways. The steering shaft is not there, so it is gonna be easy, and the bolts are easily accessible from underneath. So it's not such a big deal, but I could have predicted that a little bit better. So anyways, I don't want to do it now because it's time for dinner, and I want to end this video because I want to finish editing it. So I'm gonna leave you on a cliffhanger with this. All right, so that's gonna be everything for today, guys. I think it's a good time, it's a good spot to end the video. Just to update you on the package with the TBI system. It's still not here, even though it's moving slowly. So it's gonna be here soon. The head still not ready. It's Thursday today, so the machine shop doesn't work on Friday. It's not gonna be here at least until Tuesday now. Too bad. Anyway, now with the engine and the transmission inside, that opens a whole lot of things that we can do. Well, I don't want to do work under the dash yet because I want to put the transmission cover on for that, but I don't want to put the transmission cover on before we test the overdrive, like the wiring and everything. So even like we're not going to go for a drive, but we can test it like this with the car in the air. Here you see it is still in the air, so we can do that. And then I'm gonna put the transmission cover and finish all the wiring under the dash. And there's gonna be a lot of other things added there because we're gonna have to add an ECU to the car and run the harness that comes with the TBI as well. So I'm not gonna do a lot of work there, but here in the engine bay, I can put the starter on. When I finish here the front end of the engine, I can put the radiator on, and I can actually have a kit with electric fan that I need to install, so we can run the wiring for that. We can install the actual fan on the radiator. I can assemble lots of things here, like we only need to put the head on after that. So I'm happy that we installed the engine in the car even without the head. So that's gonna be everything for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, commenting, subscribing, sharing and supporting the channel. It is really appreciated. If you're looking for ways to support me, you can find them in the description of the video. There's PayPal, there's Patreon. So one more time I want to explain about the support. This support is not for the work that I'm doing in the garage, it's for the work that I'm doing while editing these videos, because for the work I do on the cars I'm paid for, but the time that I spend on the computer editing is not really covered by the revenue that I make from YouTube. In fact, it's now in January, it is going so far down, it's crazy. Around Christmas, there's lots of advertisers that pay crazy money, but after that in January, things go slow. And you probably noticed that the ads that you see on the videos are just stupid. They don't, they don't bring anything to the table. So your support is going towards these hours that I put on the editing. I'm just gonna mention here that your support, financial support, whether it's by Patreon or by direct deposit on PayPal, it is not buying you anything special because everything is already free. Because if I want to give you something extra, this means that I have to make it unavailable for other people who are not paying anything, and I don't want to do that. I'm just giving everything for free, and if some people want to pay for it, that's more than welcome. But if you can't afford it or you don't feel like it, you can still get it for free. Anyways, I'm rambling again. I don't want to bother you anymore with my rambling. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.